Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. How is it that when the Pope himself personally comes out and says something direct, like the sun is setting on Western civilization, no one in the mainstream media even reports it? But when some low-level subterranean office in the bowels of the Vatican comes out with a well-intentioned but essentially redundant type document, which amounts to little else than a research paper, the entire world media reacts as though man has just landed on the sun. Earlier this week, the Vatican's Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, and by the way, there's that word you always have to be leery of every time you see it in some non-papal church document, justice. It almost always means something very different from actual justice and is merely a cover to move along some strange notion that when it comes to economics, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. Anyway, this council published a document called, get this, Towards Reforming the International Financial and Monetary Systems in the Context of Global Public Authority. Within seconds of it becoming public, actually before it became public, the liberal media had either misunderstood it or deliberately mischaracterized it and announced that the Vatican, not some council out of many, but the Vatican, had announced its support for a global public authority, which sounds very much like a one-world government. When the media uses the word Vatican, it really means Pope. And that's exactly what the media hope that the world understands it to be. The Pope didn't say this. He never said anything of the kind. In fact, he never said anything at all. His Council for Justice and Peace published it. And most interestingly, when they said it, they gave the guidelines by which their statement should be read as a possible path in line with recent social teachings of the magisterium. As a matter of fact, they released it now in advance of the G20 summit meeting happening in Europe soon. So in that sense, it's helpful, but in the end, somewhat useless as a document for leading the world out of the current economic morass. Even the Vatican can't do that. But what's interesting is how the liberal, modernist, progressive crowd in the church, like, for example, Jesuit priest Father Thomas Reese and many others, immediately jumped all over this and said the most ridiculous things like, this positions the Vatican somewhere to the left of Nancy Pelosi. Really? And even more outrageous, the Pope would be much more comfortable with the Occupy Wall Street gang than with Tea Partiers. Oh, really, Father? Then he pulled a doozy and said, many people think the Pope is a Republican because he's against abortion and gay marriage. But economically, he's much more of a Democrat. Father, for the record, he's neither. And that's a nutty comment to make. This whole thing is a case of a generally benign document trying to think through the economic mess, applying the church's principles of fairness, etc., and coming up with a document that, in the end, doesn't really offer much in the way of tangible boots-on-the-ground type solutions. And that's fine. The church doesn't do economics. Heck, most parishes struggle to keep their own books balanced, much less solve world financial meltdowns. But what's truly telling is that a year before the election, because remember, the election's a year from now, the modernist liberal Catholics used the event as a way to further implant in the mind of the general populace that real Catholic voting and political stances always side with the poor, and here's the rub, over and above everything else. That poverty of the body is the real concern, and everything else is secondary, including the actual dogmatic church teachings on such things as abortion and homosexual marriage. Father Thomas Reese is not alone. As the coming days and weeks unfold, expect to start hearing this story get recycled and referenced throughout the mainstream media as something akin to this. Well, we all remember that even the Pope thinks the world economy should be jiggered with to support a United Nations management government and a World Bank to fight the issue of poverty. That's really in keeping with the Obama administration's views as well. So, Catholics should feel good and satisfied when they cast their votes for Obama. A relatively harmless and somewhat redundant Vatican document has now become a political hot potato because modernists and political liberals in the church have engineered it that way. Yet another sterling example of why faithful Catholics have to be plugged into church teachings and always ready to defend the faith. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.